ውድ የቻናላችን ተከታታዮች ከዚህ ቀጥሎ ባቀረብንላችሁ ቪዲዮ ታዋቂው ዚያም ዳንኤል ባደረገው ምርምር ሰዎች ላይ የሚጣበቁ አታቺንግ ስፒሪት ወይም ደግሞ ፍሪኩዌንሲ ወይም ደግሞ በኢትዮጵያ ክፉ መናፍስት ተብለው የሚታወቁ ኢነርጂዎች ኢንቲቲዎች እንዴት አድርገው ከሰውየው በውስጡ ካለው ወይም ከሴትዮዋ በውስጧ ካላቸው ስሜት፣ አስተሳሰብ፣ ፍሪኩዌንሲ ጋር የሚስማሙ መንፈሶች እንደሆኑና እነኚህን መንፈሶች ከሰውየው ወይም ሴትዮዋ ለዘለቄታ ከራሳቸው ማስወገድ የሚችሉበት በውስጣቸው የሚሰማቸው ስሜት፣ አስተሳሰብ እና አመለካከት ሁሉ ፖዚቲቭ የሆኑ ፍሪኩዌንሲዎችን ሲሆኑ እንጂ ሐዘን፣ ብስጭት፣ መራራነት እና ፍርሃት የተለያዩ እነኚህ ዝቅተኛ ፍሪኩዌንሲ ተብለው የሚታወቁና ከፍተኛ ፍሪኩዌንሲ ደግሞ ተብለው የሚታወቁ ፖዚቲቭ የሆኑ አስተሳሰቦች፣ ፖዚቲቭ የሆነ ማይንድ፣ ፖዚቲቭ የሆነ ለነገሮች ጋር የምናደርገው አመለካከትና በውስጣችን የምንፈጥረው ስሜት እነኚህን አይነት ሰው ላይ እንደ ፓራሳይት የሚጣበቁ አታቺንግ ስፒሪቶች እንደሚያስወግዳቸው እና ብዙ ጊዜ ሰዎች ፊር ቤዝድ የሆነ ወይም ደግሞ ስለ እነኚህ ነገሮች ምንነት ካለማወቅ የተነሳ በፍርሃት የተነሳ ነገሮቹን በጣም አፈታሪኮችና የተለያዩ ነገሮችን ከመስማት ስለሚፈሯቸው እነኚህ ነገሮች ብዙ ሰዎችን ህይወት እንደሚጎዱ እንዲያውም አንዳንዶችን ሲሾፍሪኒያ ተብለው በሚታወቁ የሳይኮሎጂ ችግሮች ውስጥ ሁሉ እንደሚከቱ ያስተምራል። ይህንን ለማስወገድ ግን ሰው ይህንን ነገር ማስወገድ የሚችለው ይህንን ነገር ገብቶት እነኚህ ሎ ፍሪኩዌንሲ የሆኑ ኢነርጂዎች እንደሆኑ ሎ ፍሪኩዌንሲ የሆኑ አታቺንግ ስፒሪቶች እንደሆኑ ከተረዳ በኋላ የራሱን ውስጡ የሚሰማውን ሃይ ፍሪኩዌንሲ በመቀየር ከነኚህ አታቺንግ ከሆኑ ፓራሳይት ስፒሪቶች ጋር የሚያገናኘው የፍሪኩዌንሲ እንትን ስለማይኖር እነኚህ መናፍስቶች ከሰውየው ይርቃሉ ወይም ከሴትዮዋ ይርቃሉ ማለት ነው። ይህንን ያስተምራል። ተመልከቱት።
Speaker, we have the incredible and one and only Zane Daniel, who will be speaking to us today about entity attachments. Zane, so I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself and jump in. Did you want me to introduce you briefly?
Oh, no, I can do that. That's fine.
Wonderful. So let's have you have the floor. Thank you so much.
All right. I'm going to have the screen. I think that's what we need to say. We're going to have the screen, not the floor. All right. So, okay. So here is, I am a light worker. I work with the Hathors, which is an extra dimensional collective similar to the Arcturians or the Pleiadians. And really just a couple of years ago, I got started on this and I did not think that I was going to become the negative entity attachment guy, but that's really exactly what happened. I didn't look at myself that way, because I was helping people with traumas and blockages and abuse situations and that sort of thing. And we were making such wonderful progress. And then all of a sudden, this whole negative entity thing just blew up. And I ended up finding more and more people that were coming to me with this issue, mostly because of my YouTube channel. And as a result, at first, I was kind of not that into it. And I just wanted to get rid of them, which I can pretty easily do. But then I discovered that people kept coming back and saying, actually, they're not always going away. They're actually returning to me. So I had kind of figured out and realized that it wasn't about removing them. It was about something completely different. And so I ended up creating a program to help people with this. In this process, I have discovered so much more about negative entities. And I've got a lot that I want to share with everybody, because I'm also working on a documentary that is this title. It is Negative Spirit Attachments Misdiagnosed as Schizophrenia. So I want to go ahead and get going with it, because why am I doing this? I am a light worker who helps people remove negative entity attachments, but it's not just that, right? So I'm really here to help usher the world into a widespread fifth dimensional consciousness as much as possible. I have this imagery here because this is what I picture. This is what I want us to see us do. I want to see us create these incredible structures, incredible artwork, incredible whatever it is to represent our beauty as humans. And so, helping people get over negative entity attachments does not seem like a process for that at all. And most of the time we think of negative entity attachments or spirits or possessions as something very dark and not bright and shiny and happy. And I think that my approach to that is somewhat unique in that world. So that's what I'm here to do. And I'm also here to help people transmute fear into unconditional love, because that is the path. And can you think of anything more scary than demon possessions or that sort of thing? So if I can help people that have been struggling with negative entity attachments and surrounded by fear move into unconditional love, then we can take huge strides across the population and across the society in doing that. So I want to go ahead first and do one of my activations to actually remove negative entity attachments from anybody who's watching. This is a very quick activation. And even if it is only temporary, like I explained, because even the best light workers in the world can still only do this temporarily if you don't make changes to yourself, I want to go ahead and do it anyway, so that if anybody's got any negative entity attachments who's watching or watching the recording, they're not being distracted by them during this presentation. So all you need to do is close your eyes and take a nice big deep breath and relax as you exhale. Feel yourself sinking into your chair that you're sitting in. I mean, really let that happen. Feel gravity pulling you down. Check any tightness in your shoulders or your back or your neck or your jaw. And my activations are very quick and easy. I'm going to say breath in. And when I do, you'll take a nice big deep breath. You'll hold it at the top and you'll wait for me to make a loud sound, and then you can exhale. Since I work with the Hathors, they are very much into sound as their healing modality. So removing negative entity attachments for anybody watching or watching the recording, breath in. Oh, mm-hmm. Good. Okay, and to give a little bit more support to keep them from coming back right away, I'm going to go ahead and activate the chakra right above the crown. This is sometimes called the soul star chakra or the halo chakra. Same process. Breath in. Oh, good. Okay. When you're ready to proceed, then you can open your eyes. All right. So the next question is, why in the heck do we even have negative entity attachments in the first place? Really, if you think about it, that the reason low frequency spirits attach to people is because those people are extremely powerful, and they're here to change the world using their unique gifts. They are open. Their channel is open because they're so powerful. And I know it doesn't seem like it, but the negative entity attachments are actually sort of here. Maybe they don't realize that they're here for this, but they're sort of here to help us ascend. If you think about any of the ways that you could decide to ascend, you could have a near-death experience. You could have a plant medicine experience. You could have just a surprising moment. Someone could die in your family. Jerry Sargent had his happen because he saw somebody who was killed in an accident. These sorts of things, while horrible at the time, can actually be incredible, enlightening experiences. Perhaps a pandemic could be your catalyst moment. So it doesn't mean that negative entities are just demons and they're just here to take over the world. It could also mean that they're actually here to help us to raise our vibration and to step into our power and to our gifts. They're doing it in ugly, irritating, and terrible ways that we can't deny that. But sometimes that's what we need in order to get off of our butts and do the things that we need to do. So you are powerful, and you're going to be able to do amazing things if you have negative entity attachments, and you shouldn't take that lightly. Okay, so like I said, if you go to shamans and light workers, some of the most powerful shamans and light workers in the world, they will do activations. They will maybe spend 30 minutes or 45 minutes rather than just like the 4-second activation that I did. And they'll remove your entities and they'll be successful. But maybe after a week, maybe after a day, maybe even after an hour, they'll just come back. And that's because you have to do something yourself, not just going to someone else. Okay, so if you are open to the spirit world, what sort of things are you going to attract? If you are high vibrational, if you are high frequency, then you are going to bring in high vibrational and high frequency beings. You're going to bring in the collectives, the angels, the ascended masters. But if you've had a lot of childhood trauma, or you've had abuse situations, or any number of things, then you are low frequency, you are low vibrational. And so that's the type of being that's going to come in to you through your open channel. And what's interesting too is that fear, of course, is a lower vibrational frequency. So if you are in a state of fear, then you are more likely to bring in scary things. Fear-based actions cause fear-based results. I often tell people, don't put a circle of protection around you, because I believe that is a fear-based action. Oh no, I hope nothing gets to me. Oh, my fear of protection better work. Uh-oh. Instead, go, I am so powerful. I don't even have to worry about negative entity attachments. They are a joke compared to me. So it's so important to move into that higher frequency. And if we look at David R. Hawkins' map of consciousness, it's all laid out for us. Surprisingly, that all the higher vibrational emotions, joy, excitement, gratitude, unconditional love, vibrate higher. And the lower vibrational emotions, haha, what a surprise, fear, apathy, guilt, shame, disappointment, frustration, these are all going to be lower on the frequency. So, what are you going to attract? You're going to attract beings of light, or are you going to attract beings of dark? So the methods that I use to help people remove entities from their lives comes from a 2-month program that I've designed to help raise their vibration, help them step into their power. So what is the quick way that we accomplish this? We work in the brain, because the brain produces 100,000 thoughts a day. And we need to make sure that most of those thoughts, or a large portion of those thoughts, take us through to higher vibrational territory. We do it through lessons and tools and energy work. We reprogram the subconscious mind. We help people step into their power through all of these methods. And all the while, we're doing the activations to make the entities at least temporarily disappear, to make that easier and easier. So we are making it so that students are no longer a vibrational match for lower density beings. So, okay, so now you understand what I do for negative entity attachments. So what are we going to do, or would this process work for those who are diagnosed with schizophrenia? We don't know yet, or I don't know for sure yet through practice, but I'm in the process. So I've begun to have more and more people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia or schizoaffective enter my program. And we're still at the very early stages of this experience, but so far they've been making very good progress, which I wasn't totally sure was going to be true, but I'm pretty excited about the prospects. But, we need still more time, and I need still more people to come through the program. But what I want to do now is talk about where schizophrenia and negative entity attachments overlap, or where they don't. And so how did I start to figure this out? Well, as I mentioned, I'm filming a documentary. I recently started working with Cosmic TV, which is another up-and-coming streaming service that is very similar to like a Gaia or any of those others, but it's only very high vibrational programming altogether. And I was named the content director for Cosmic TV, and decided, well, how can I be a content director if I don't make some content myself? So I thought, all right, well, it's time to make a documentary. What do I really want to know? Well, I want to know if psychosis or schizophrenia and negative entity attachments have any corollary. So I started interviewing schizophrenic patients. I started interviewing negative entity patients, and I started talking to psychologists and psychiatrists. And soon I'll be working with and talking to other light workers who deal with negative entity attachments as well, to put together a nice conclusion as to where we are. I'm in the middle of filming this. It's probably going to come out in 2022. So I'm not complete on my conclusion, but I've gotten a lot out of it so far, and I want to share that with you. So the psychiatrists and the psychologists that I interviewed so far surprised me. Both of them surprised me because they were open-minded to spiritual causes. I did not expect this whatsoever, and so much so that I was kind of looking forward to having a psychiatrist or a psychologist who was mad. You know, if I suggested, well, what if it really is negative beings? And I wanted them to get really mad and throw their microphone on the floor and stomp out of the interview, like, what's wrong with you? This is ridiculous. But to my surprise, neither of them did that. They were both actually quite open to it. And one of them even kind of had a series of questions that they used to determine whether it was just schizophrenia or just negative entity attachments. And I'll kind of explain what that was about. So that blew me away. And I was actually pretty excited about that this is possible, that they are starting to open their eyes to the possibility. So the other thing that they told me about was that 20% of the entire population are diagnosed with some form of mental illness. Now, we can look at this in any number of ways, because we also, many of us, feel that overdiagnosis is constant, that if there's anything slightly wrong, they go, oh, yep, you have a mental illness. Okay, take this medication. Next patient, please. Next patient, please. Next patient, please. So the potential is certainly there that number is bloated based on that. And then if you look at third world nations, for instance, you'll find that their numbers are very different. Well, is that because they don't have it? Or is that because they don't have psychiatrists who are quick to give people diagnoses? Well, I think we all know that the conclusion that I have on that. I don't even have to state it. However, let's talk about what is schizophrenia. What's great about this is I grabbed some definitions and threw them on here. And what are the words that stood out to me? Faulty perception. Faulty perception sounds like judgment of the person who is administering the diagnosis. Inappropriate actions. Sounds like judgment of the person giving the diagnosis. Withdrawal from reality. Oh, that sounds like judgment. Into fantasy and delusion. Oh, sounds like judgment. So we are creating this diagnosis based off of our mainstream view of what society is. So already I'm bristling because I'm thinking, hey, who knows what reality is? Who knows what fantasy is? What delusion? Maybe we're all delusional then, right? So this is the common thought that we go to. And then psychosis is the same sort of thing. We lose touch with reality and real and so on and so forth. We're not going to dive into that anymore. You get where I'm coming from. So then I wanted to ask, what causes schizophrenia? So I asked the psychiatrist, and actually he had a better definition of what causes schizophrenia than you can find online. And it was very clear and concise, which I found very interesting. He said that it's an overproduction of the neurotransmitter dopamine as measured on the D2 receptors. Interesting. Okay. So he's saying that they're getting very good now at diagnosing schizophrenia, that it is no longer a garbage diagnosis, that they know very well. The problem is they still just ask a whole bunch of questions. They don't do a blood test. They don't do a neurochemical test. You just have to check all the boxes. And the other thing he talked about a lot was that schizophrenia is degenerative. If you do not get the medication at a certain time, then your baseline will always be whenever you got the medication. So you can never improve beyond the moment of getting the medication. So if you were young, maybe you were 18 and you got your first dosage, then you're not going to get any worse than whatever symptoms that you had at that time. But if you don't get your medication until you're 40 or over, then you're going to just be the same as you pretty much were. You just won't get any worse. Okay. So, once again, sounds very much like, hey, we got to get the medication in him. Yeah, maybe. All right. So then what was really fun is that the psychologist said, okay, so why would we have schizophrenia? Why would we still have this when we don't really need it to survive? That isn't going to help you further the species. This isn't going to help you do any of these things. So what would be the cause, or what would be the reason from an evolutionary standpoint? Well, he says that we needed shaman and witch doctors to speak to God and receive wisdom, that maybe the tribes that had these people did better and survived. And you don't need many of them in the tribe. And if you look at it, 0.8% of the population have been diagnosed with schizophrenia. So could it be that these people, because they're maybe even more open to the spirit world than everybody else, is going to be useful to society? Well, isn't that interesting? Okay. So the symptoms of schizophrenia are very similar to the symptoms of negative attachments. I realize I'm already going to be going over, so to go very quickly, the first two categories are huge. Hallucinations, visual hallucination. First of all, that's an important word, right? That means they're seeing things that don't actually exist. Visual, voices with clarity and a loud volume level, and tactile. They'll feel things crawling all over them. They'll feel like they're being sexually assaulted. And then delusions. They'll have problems with relationships. They believe that they're speaking to a deity, or they're possessed by a demon. What a surprise. Maybe they believe they have a terrible illness, or that they're being stalked. There's that paranoia aspect, right? Or they're grandiose. They think that they have a major figure in society, that they are one, or that they're doing something really important, that they have a mission or a goal in life. Do we all have that? Okay, so what's the difference? What are the symptoms of negative attachments? Very similar. You're hearing voices. It's generally the same voice. It can be different ones, but oftentimes it's the same one, because you have the negative entity attachment that you have. But they're often described as thoughts, not often clear and loud. Yes, you can feel things. The bed is moving. They can feel someone touching them. The confusion, the brain confusion, is not quite as severe, that it's a little bit more like a brain fog, but they're still able to articulate clearly. The spiritual loss is a very common one for people with negative entity attachments. They feel like they've lost connection with their guides or source or the creator. They've lost their spiritual gifts, or they can't receive energy healing anymore because it's being interfered with by the negative entities. Okay, so what are the overlaps? The hearing voices, the tactile experiences, the becoming withdrawn, not having friends, not having romantic relationships, having career issues, and then the brain function, disorganized thinking and being incoherent, to brain fog and just a little bit of confusion. Now, there is a difference though, right? So we're talking about in schizophrenic patients, the voices are loud and they're super clear. Sometimes they're yelling, whereas negative spirit attachments, it's just a subtle thought. The extreme tactile experience versus just subtle tactile experience. The becoming withdrawn, this was interesting because it's before onset. So when they're children, they're not having friends, they're not having sexual relationships. So, there's something interesting there, because in the negative spirit attachment, that usually happens after you have the negative attachment. Up until that point, they've had a normal life. And then the thinking, being super disorganized and super confused versus just some brain fog. And so what the psychologist does to determine the difference is they ask those questions. Did you have friends when you were younger, a girlfriend or a boyfriend? Have you had a good career? Can you keep your job? Have you had successes and normal failures, a normal career life? And are the voices that you're hearing loud and clear as my voice is right now? Or does it just sound like they are in the room, or just sound like thoughts? Okay. So now I'm getting very close to my theory, my conclusion, but there's still some questions that I have. Are the two truly separate? How often are negative entity attachment sufferers diagnosed with schizophrenia who shouldn't be? This is going to be a very difficult one to discover. Could schizophrenia, at least the neurotransmitter imbalance, be caused by spirit attachments? Do these spirit attachments actually cause us to have the neurotransmitter imbalance? Or could it be the other way around, that the neurotransmitter imbalance allows spirits to come through more clearly? And that is my theory. What if the neurochemical imbalance that occurs, all the filters drop away? It could be that the individual is now wide open for spiritual attachments because the neurochemistry isn't there to protect them, or to make them go down the mainstream, or to make it so that they are the shaman or the witch doctor in their tribe. Could it be that the schizophrenic mind actually opens the channel further for spirit voices to come through? It seems highly likely. The psychiatrist that I spoke to about also said that not all patients experience extremely negative experiences. This was really important to me. I wanted to know, is it possible for a schizophrenic patient to actually bring in positive information? He said, yes, it's very common that they experience bliss and they believe they have some great purpose and they are speaking to fantastical beings. Oh, okay. All right. So if that's all true, and this is just repeating what I said, then what if we actually, like we said originally, that schizophrenia or that neurochemical imbalance is predisposed in our species so that we can bring this information through, so that those beings could be important rather than shunned. And so then I have to ask, well, why isn't it still this way? Why isn't it just the schizophrenic patients that are bringing in this information? Wouldn't it be that why, that what's the other 99% or 99.2%? Why is it that we're starting to get these negative entity attachments so often? Well, it seems pretty obvious to me. We're advancing, we're ascending, we're awakening, we're connecting to the spirit world. It's not just the schizophrenic patients now, it's all of us. It's imperative for us to continue to raise our vibration in that case, to step into our power and to use our relentless minds, 100,000 thoughts a day, to think unconditionally loving, gratitude-based, happy thoughts, and to surround ourselves with the knowledge that we have control over our experience, that we are powerful. So, I mean, it could be that we're in for a big invasion as more and more people wake up, but they're still stuck at that lower vibrational level. I don't want to talk about that, though, in a scary sense, because I don't believe that that's what's going to happen. I'm a very positive and optimistic person. I know that all of us that are already awake and that are already moving into this high vibrational state of mind, all the people that are watching this right now, you guys can turn and help those that are suffering in this process, at the very beginning stages of this process. So I'm excited about the possibility, and hopefully now you understand it a little bit better, and so that you can turn and help the next person who has this trouble as well. And so could we see a time where we help schizophrenics use their incredible gifts to help the world? Because now if we take and work on a schizophrenic patient and we raise their vibration, yes, they may still have the mental confusion or some of the other symptoms, but if we can remove the negative entity attachments from them and instead give them the positive beings that they're working through, then all of a sudden, instead of being shunned and put away in a facility, they could join us and be voices for the spiritual revolution that we're all going through. And that's something I'm super excited about, to see if we can start tapping into that really untapped resource. Whew. I managed to get through it. Okay, I've been totally looking at all this. Is there anybody fun that has some wonderful questions for me? I would like to see what you guys think.
Amazing. Let's see if we have any questions here on.
It looks like some people are still kind of catching up with previous things. So.
Yeah, so we have Russ says, positive actions and attitudes are usually fueled by the subconscious mind. No? That darkness within.
Well, sure, but positive actions and attitudes are usually fueled by the subconscious mind. Yeah, absolutely. They're also fueled by the conscious mind. You can decide what kind of positive actions you want to take. You can decide how to look at the world. You can decide that the world is a beautiful, amazing place and that you have gratitude for even existing in it. So we can, if you give more power to the subconscious mind, if you believe that the subconscious mind is more powerful than you, then you're giving that power away that you actually have complete and total access to.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that there's a connection between these emotions and the lymphatic system?
I have no idea. I have not done any research on that.
Okay, very good. Let's see. We have another question for 7K. Says, Stephen, GK, who says, would you recommend people suffering from schizophrenia get off medication before getting helped, or what would you do?
At this point, I would make sure that they stayed on it. I do not recommend anybody gets off of that, because if they're right and that degenerative experience is totally true, then let's not mess with that until we know so much more. So I'm in the early stages, like I said, and I'm starting to work with some schizophrenic patients, and they are staying on their medication. Only after I feel super confident that we're making a huge difference would I ever recommend that. And even still, let's say we remove the negative aspects of the beings that they're speaking to, but there are other aspects to this disease, which is that overabundance of dopamine. What kind of damage is that doing to the brain? Is that causing the confusion? By removing the medication, would that just continue to degenerate? I never want to recommend that anybody does that quite yet until we know more.
Amazing. Here, woke dealer Pinkarisa says, excuse me. Yay, awesome. Are there people who are schizophrenic that don't know that they are? Or can we also have another clearing?
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, even the people that are schizophrenic don't know that they are in many cases, and they don't want to believe it either. I mean, it's not a great thing. Like, yay, I'm schizophrenic. Like, this is what I'm going to do now. It's much more of, I hope I'm not. It has a very negative connotation to it. So nobody wants to associate or attach themselves to a diagnosis like that. So I would say a lot more about focusing on, yes, in both cases, with schizophrenia or without, you could speak to entities. Great. That's its own separate thing. Now, is the mental confusion, the very severe mental confusion, coming from a mental imbalance? That's something that I think is worth checking. And one of the issues is, if you go to a psychiatrist and you say, I'm hearing voices and all this stuff, then they're more likely to jump to the conclusion of schizophrenia, as opposed to, what is it that we could actually do to help you? So again, at this point, allopathy, you never know what you're going to get. So talk to me first, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Zane. That was amazing.